Hello and welcome to the Resleevables Portal 3 Kingdoms edition. I'm your host, Patrick Sullivan, joined by Pro Tour champion and Magic Hall of Famer, Patrick Chapin. And we are about to discuss a Portal set, but one that is oddly beloved by more experienced and tournament veteran players.
Yeah, and I think that's a congruence of a few things that we'll end up getting into. There's some really cool stuff to like about Portal 3 Kingdoms.
Yeah, it kind of to me is almost like the merging of Portal with Arabian Nights, insofar as it's simplified and there's different things going on than your standard set to try to help as an introductory product. But in terms of setting a tone or a world, it's a very particular place in time in history and storytelling that they're trying to tap into. And I think in a way that was largely successful.
Yeah, and I think they really meant it. Like, you know, all the art in the entire set was done by Chinese artists.
I had a sense of that going through the art, but I didn't know it was 100%.
Yeah, like it's awesome that they really did it. Like they went and they did it without it feeling completely hokey and fake, you know? And it's a delicate line to try to walk, you know, because this is way before there's this universes beyond understanding of how we design the kind of tangential products. This is like one of the OG universes beyond type of experiences.
It's a rich and beautiful set. It still has some of the Portal issues that we'll also get into as we go along. But first, the facts of Portal 3 Kingdoms brought to you by our sponsor, Tales of Adventure. If you're in the market for Magic cards, and if you're watching this, you probably are, I can't recommend anyone more highly than our sponsor, Tales of Adventure. Their website is toamagic.com. And if you're on Twitter, you can follow the store owner, Michael Caffrey, at toamichael. There's frequently deals and sales that are available on Twitter, so you're going to want to be paying attention to that because some of that stuff isn't on the website. I go to them for everything, particularly high-end. My favorite feature about the high-end stuff is that it's individually scanned, so you know ahead of time what card you're purchasing. You don't have to worry about what their definition of HP or MP is. You actually can see the card. Make sure to be using promo code RESLEEVABLES at checkout for all of your orders. And if you are placing an order inside the United States, that comes with free tracking and shipping. Tales of Adventure, Eternal lives here. Portal 3 Kingdoms is a starter level set and the third and final installment of Portal and Magic the Gathering. Released on July 6, 1999, according to an official WotC spoiler list, though numerous sites claimed it was released in May 1999. Going off pre-release promo dates, different regions had different pre-release and release dates. The pre-release promo was a non-foil. Do you know this one? This is a deep pull if you have it.
The Zodiac, was it the Zodiac Rooster?
Good guess. Lubu, Master at Arms. This is a solo joint designed and developed entirely by Henry Stern. Portal 3 Kingdoms contain 180 white border cards. Notably, Portal and Portal Second Age were both black bordered sets. If you've watched some of our earlier episodes, you know at the time, Magic had some really archaic sensibilities around things that were white bordered versus black bordered. And I assume because this was printed primarily for the Asian market, they said that these were all reprints and gave them the white border.
No. Okay, so it's not that they were all just reprints either. There was some ambiguity about whether the cards were even going to be legal. It was all very confusing. But not every card in the set is a reprint, even just like in spirit, you know? So like, I think it was literally during a period of time. I think it was during a period of time where there was this. Okay, you know the feeling, or you know the design sensibility of we need some stuff to be not cool so that we can make other stuff seem cooler by comparison.
Definitely.
There was this germ of an idea that we need to make stuff white bordered so that black bordered stuff looks cooler.
Okay.
And it was like just trying to uglify some stuff so that other stuff look better, which I think is a little misguided.
Maybe it has something to do with the art palette. Maybe there was a creative decision that just said, hey, the art pieces we're getting back look better white border.
I'm telling you, Portal 3 Kingdoms looks so much better black border. People used to just black border the cards, which then ends up embarrassing in retrospect when you're like, my Imperial Seal has marker around it.
So again, 180 cards, 55 rares, 55 uncommons, 55 commons, and 15 basic lands, 3 arts of each of the 5. This is pre-4 mythic rares, so no mythics in the set. Portal 3 Kingdoms expansion symbol is the Chinese character for 3. This was a flavorful set based on the 3 Kingdoms period of Chinese history aimed at mostly Asian markets. It was primarily printed in Japanese, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese. There was an English printing, which we will get to in a little bit, but it was mostly sold to Australia and New Zealand. The set was largely ignored in North American media. Duelist magazine ran ads for 6th edition and Urza's Destiny at the time with no mention of Portal 3 Kingdoms. I don't remember ever seeing an ad for this set inside of the magazines and advertising that I saw for Wizard at the time, and I was a very active player during 6th edition and Urza's Destiny. So at the time, I didn't even hear of this thing. It was many years down the line before I even knew this set existed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a little different experience because I was playing a bunch in Australia and Malaysia and stopped in Hong Kong. And it was like, and this is right around the year 2000. And in early, like February of 2000. And they were still promoting Portal 3 Kingdoms then. Like you could just go play Portal 3 Kingdoms to learn how to play, you know?
So when this like hit the street, you were aware, like it was in your local market where you were hanging out or working?
No, I wouldn't say my local market. I would say that I was playing Magic all over the world, and it was literally only in Australia and Southeast Asia that I just saw it in the wild organically. I was at something in Seattle where it appeared, but I think it was like a thing on purpose just because Wizards of the Coast is right there and there was an event, you know. But the only time I saw it really in the wild at the time when it first came out was in Malaysia, Sydney, and Hong Kong. And
have you drafted P3K?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Way better than Portal. Yeah, it's actually a pretty good draft format. I think it drafts better than it constructed. As a standalone draft experience, it doesn't have the same replayability because everything's kind of the same thing. Like there's a lot of evasion, like a lot. And the card pieces themselves, most of the cards aren't very dynamic other than like there's these high rarity cards that just, there's a lot of the abysses of one form or another. But, so there's a lot of racing, but, and mostly you just pick the best card in your color because there's no real synergies either. But the games aren't miserable. As a person who's drafted Portal an unhealthy amount, I can tell you that Portal is pretty miserable for a lot of those kind of experiences. You just play a 4-5 and it's like, okay, the next 16 turns are going to be interesting. And Portal 3 Kingdoms really learned from those lessons.
Portal 3 Kingdoms was sold in a few ways. 10 card booster packs with a rare, 2 uncommons, 5 commons, and 2 basic lands. Booster packs featured the art of riding red hair, and then 3 40 card pre-constructed theme decks. We got the Shu Kingdom. It's mono white. Shu Kingdom features the virtuous Lubi, his brilliant strategist Kongming, and his heroic general Wan Yu. This deck has an intriguing mix of attack and defensive capabilities. With its great flexibility, it can outmaneuver any opposing kingdom's forces. And I'm not going to go through the deck list, but it's just a pile of the creatures you'd expect in Portal. We got the Wu Kingdom, mono blue. Woo woo! Wu Kingdom is led by the wise Sun Wan and his able general Lu Xun. With this deck, you can counter your opponent's strategies and draw more cards, giving you more options in the game. Once you've gained control of the battlefield, your kingdom will reign supreme. And then we got blah, blah, blah again, some card drawing and some counters and whatever. And then we got the Wei Kingdom.
That one's got, at least you're like bouncing their stuff and then you try to draw more cards. And in practice, it doesn't pan out, but.
All right, we got the Wei Kingdom mono black. Wei Kingdom is led by the ruthless Cao Cao and his ingenious general, Sima Yi. Note, the box uses ingenious, but that is likely a typo for ingenious, as history recounts Samayi is crafty and ambitious military leader and politician. This aggressive deck moves quickly to destroy your opponent's troops and forces your opponent to discard cards. Weakened by your disruptive attacks, the opposing kingdom will surely fall. So I want to call out a couple things that are very nice about these decks. One is they're all monocolored. Now, it is nice to show off 2 colors, and it sucks for people who favorite color is red or green. They don't have a deck here, but the basic lands in the portal starters, like the situation with the basic lands, is so bad for the 2 and 3 color decks that for something like this, I'm happy to say just let people cast their stuff and don't worry too much about showing all the colors. The second thing I really like about these decks is they all contain 3 rares. One of the rares is just a card, and 2 of the rares in each deck are the legendary creatures in question. There's something really
kind
rough.
of the general in the right hand or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so sweet. One, because it really helps you identify which one's my rare. Well, obviously it's the legend with a unique name that helps from a collectability standpoint. And 2, it gives these decks that are otherwise kind of rudderless and mechanical a feeling of identity, even if it doesn't necessarily manifest in the games.
Yeah. And the legends do kind of speak to the themes insofar, they are, if you were to just look at it and you have no sense of rate, at least it's telling you stuff that you're like, okay, I get what I'm doing. Okay. And they have a feel like they're an individual with some skill rather than just a generic grunt.
And I'm not saying that these decks are great by any means, but we're starting from a very low base historically of how, in my opinion, poorly crafted the starter deck experience was for not just Portal, but the expansions. And these look like someone at least identified some of the issues and went in a dramatically different direction to try to alleviate those issues from the past.
Yeah. It still suffers from the problem of you could kind of just pick a random collection of cards in one color and it might play better in part because which we'll get to, but there's a design problem with Portal 3 Kingdoms that I think contributes to why playing cards on purpose doesn't work as well as just randomly, literally play anything.
Yeah. We also have the 2 30-card ready-to-play decks for Portal 3 Kingdoms. These decks are sort of analogous to the ones that we've reviewed in Portal. These are the decks that really suck. They're 3 colors, terrible mana, bunch of random cards, and, the 2-player starter deck, it comes with the little paper play mat and some of the rules to get you through the first game. So it's not really meant to be real playable, but I feel like they could have still done a little bit better.
There's a fair bit of CC in this set too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mana base, what Cedric and I battled with those Portal starters back in the day. They are rough.
Mm-hmm.
That does it for the facts. We'll be back in a moment with the mechanics of Portal 3 Kingdom. How can we talk about Portal 3 Kingdoms and the mechanics without starting at the tippity top? Horsemanship. Horsemanship is a reskin of flying. This creature can't be blocked except by creatures with horsemanship. It was more spread out through the color pie, though green still only got 1 creature with horsemanship.
Yeah. Green also had this weird theme of can't be blocked by horsemanship.
Yeah, that's the...
We just need more cards. It's the number of types of evasion in this set is wild.
It is weird because at least with, a creature with flying that says this can only block creatures with flying.
Yeah.
There's a story there.
Yeah.
Really high in the sky. Okay. Rashad Airship. I buy it. That's fine. Horsemanship, the creative conceit's a little bit weirder.
Well, also, this isn't the same design because horsemanship can only block horsemanship is a thing. Green had some cards that are just half horsemanship. It's just can't be blocked by horsemanship, but it doesn't have horsemanship. And it's so it doesn't do anything on defense different, whereas horsemanship does.
It's like Elvish Riders. that sort of design.
Right. And it's kind of like they were like, well, instead of reach, we got to give them something that's good against horsemanship.
Mm-hmm.
But to call this good against horsemanship is a little weird. It's not like anybody with horsemanship can block, you know?
And I think what is going on here is that Magic needs a baseline amount of evasion to make the game playable. This is especially true for new players because people are often, when they're new, pretty more conservative than is correct with engaging in combat. And you need something that makes that decision easier to get the game over with and get it gummed down. And the world that they're drawing from, they're actually drawing from, real kingdoms that existed on planet Earth. That's not going to get you the critical mass of flying that you need to make Magic play well. And so let's do essentially flying, but call it something that makes more sense in the context of the set.
Yeah, and it gives it a flavor, a feel. And horsemanship plays well, but it also lets you redistribute the pie a little bit, where you can not have horsemanship be exactly laid out the way that flying is. Mm-hmm. For instance, in this set, the amount of horsemanship, you don't see blue's dominance quite the same way you would in some other sets,
Yeah, that was a huge problem in limited and low power formats back in the day was just the way the games were balanced, that creatures with flying were really, that's the thing that was going on. And because flying is tapping into a particular theme, a tone, a color pie expression, that's going to be disproportionately shown in certain colors. And as you mentioned, with horsemanship, you get to flatten it out because, anyone can ride a horse. Maybe you want to have some colors more than others, but you can get kind of spread the love around.
Yeah, I also think that when you're a person who's designing a set by themselves, it can be really wise to make smart bets of, what is it like if it goes right? What if it gets right if it goes wrong? And if you make the set lock up too much, the games are going to be really boring and slow. Whereas if you make the games a little long, if there's a little bit, a high amount of evasion and everything trades, it's not the worst mistake to make. It just plays so much better to err on the side that way, to bias that way. And when you're low on time or low on design resources or game playtest or whatever, that's a good way to hedge, where you could even know you're probably a little skewed, but it's just smart to be off the one way.
And in terms of low on resources, this set was made entirely by one person. That's about as low on resources as you can get. Henry Stern, great designer, a huge master, but
great rocket scientist.
Yeah, you got one person working on the thing. It's nice to take a couple shortcuts. There's a number of cards with horsemanship across the set here. I'm not going to go through all of them. Also, with horsemanship replacing flying, cards like Rolling Earthquake and Borrowing the East Wind were included to provide similar effects to cards like Earthquake and Hurricane. So you have a couple reskins of.
They have a bunch of other things too, though, like destroy a creature with or kill a creature with horsemanship.
Yeah,
where it's like a reskin of kill a creature with flying, but there is a story you can kind of picture there of like tactically we're going after the guy.
Yeah, a lot of creatures in the set have horsemanship. Something that I do really like about it is there's a nice spread of it on both the legendary and non-legendary creatures. I think that makes sense in terms of, well, you have elite troops that will ride horses. So it makes sense to have some of that have horsemanship, but riding a horse is often associated with generalship or some level of prestige and wealth. And so you want that to be more represented on the rares and more represented on the legendary creatures, but not in totality in both directions. We also have some cards that refer to horsemanship, like we talked about before, Rolling Earthquake, Borrowing in the East Wind, Taoist Mystic, and Tripwire as a few examples. That does it for that. We'll be back momentarily with the cycles presented by Bosch and Roll. If you like Eternal, you like watching people stream Eternal, you like watching someone win a lot while they stream Eternal, highly recommend Brian Koval's channel, Bosch and Roll. Streams every weekday. He is a legendary hitter these days in the North American Eternal scene. His showings during Eternal Weekend in Pittsburgh the last couple of years, top 8s all over the place, just rolls out of bed, wins a Black Lotus. Very entertaining streamer. So if you are interested in leveling up your Eternal game or just having some good times watching a very good Magic player play Eternal formats, make sure to be checking out Bosch and Roll on YouTube. All right. Cycles. First, the big one. The Zodiac creatures. Cycle of 12 of each representing a different sign of the Chinese zodiac. The flavor text on all three combine to tell the epic Chinese poem, The End of Three Kingdoms, a historical novel written by Gong Hao's Lu. To read the poem in order, follow this path. Snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, pig, rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon.
Yeah, so it's just like real life.
Exactly. Do you know what year you were, like the year of the blank you were born in?
I think it was Year of the Monkey.
I think I was year of the rat. We should go back and look.
I'm sure mine's Year of the Monkey. Nah, because I got like, I got a Year of the Monkey present at one point from somebody that, you know.
This will be easy to verify, but go back to this. I was pretty sure, based on my recollection of reading Chinese menus as a kid in New Jersey, that I was a Year of the Rat guy. But are we going to the
checking
tape?
for you right now?
All right,
keep going. What's your story of when you're?
No, just I think I recall 1981 being the Year of the Rat.
It is not.
What
Year of the Rat, 1984.
Then what am
I? Good question. 1981 year Chinese zodiac. Rooster.
Rooster.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep, the metal cock.
That's nice. I like roosters. It's I would put that in the top half of animals I would want to be here. Sweet. All right. I don't know if you would call this a cycle necessarily, but legendary creatures. Huge representation in the set. 31 legendary creatures.
I do want to mention something about the Zodiac thing though.
Hit me.
What in the world is going on with the amount of with the land walking on so many of these Zodiac creatures?
It's a pretty rough cycle because Zodiac Dragon is obviously the most iconic of the bunch.
And it's so different than the other 11.
And the other 11, all the other 11 land walk?
There's like 3-4 land walk, 3-3 land walk, 3-3 land walk, 2-1 land walk, 2-1 land walk, 2-2 land.
I think red has 2 different mountain goats. They have 2 different 1/1s for a red that have mountain walk. If memory serves.
That can't be right. The Zodiac goat and the Zodiac dog. Yeah, one of them's 2-2 for or one of them's 2-2 for 3, one of them's 1-1 for 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally we've got a 1-1. Yeah, Zodiac dog is a 2-2 mountain walk for 3, Zodiac goat's a 1-1 for 1, Zodiac horse. This is the one that offends me. Zodiac horse is a 3-3 island walk for 3 and a green.
Yeah.
Island walk.
Probably Planeswalk, right? Swap it with the rooster.
And then Zodiac monkey, 2-1 forest walk. Zodiac ox, 3-3 swamp walk. Zodiac pig, also 3-3 swamp walk, different color. Zodiac rabbit, 1-1 forest walk. Zodiac rat, 1-1 swamp walk. Rooster, 2-1 plains walk. Yep. Yeah. Snake, 2-2 swamp walk. And the tiger, 3-4 forest walk. It's literally 11 landwalkers that are small and terrible rate, and then one gigantic dragon with a cool text box that...
Yeah. The rooster doesn't have a bad rate.
I guess. 2-1 planeswalk?
For 2?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
It's totally fine in context, but I just mean that it's like, you're not even doing anything. It's
no. It's a very weird cycle.
Yeah. And the fact that they're at different rarities, kind of all over the place, commons, uncommons, 1 rare. It's a mismatch.
Yeah. 31 legends. These creatures are based on figures from the Three Kingdoms period of Chinese history, including some fictitious characters based mostly on minor historical personas. 31 legends in a set with, 55 rares? That's a huge amount of the file. But cool. Different. Gives the set a different tone here. We also got 11 vanilla creatures. Just random ding-dongs with nothing but power and toughness.
The one thing I do like about the vanilla choices in this set is the amount that you're not causing accidental collateral damage. Because I think sometimes there's a temptation to just make generic combinations that have been made before for like a beginner set. But not putting any text doesn't mean the card is automatically fun or good or bad or anything else. There's an artistry to making vanilla cards and to picking spots for them and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like if you got a 4/5 that just brick walls the whole game, it's going to be like very, very impactful. Whereas if your vanilla is like a 3/3 for 4 in white, even though that's something new because of white not having a Hell Giant, it's very low risk. It's a great spot to have stuff trade off. You know, a 3/3 is really interesting in context anyway, where it's bigger than a lot of the horsemanship creatures, but it's not so big that it's like dominating anything.
And to speak more about there being some real work done here with the set creatively in a way that it was kind of absent from the other Portal sets. So we have this set with 31 legendary creatures, and the names are all things like Cao Cao, Lord of Wei, and Lu Meng, Wu General. There's a lot of personality and history that you're tapping into with those names. Compare it to the names. I'm going to rattle off the names of the 11 vanilla creatures. Shu Elite Infantry, Shu Foot Soldiers, Volunteer Militia, Straw Soldiers, Wu Infantry, Wei Infantry, Independent Troops, Forest Bear, Meng Ho's Horde, Southern Elephant, Trained Jackal. That sort of contrast between these are named characters, legends with abilities, and then we're filling out the file with a bunch of animals and groups of soldiers who don't have any abilities at all. I think that's really cool. That does it for the cycles. We'll be back momentarily with the trivia for Portal 3 Kingdoms. Trivia time. This set contains legendary creatures, something the prior two Portal sets has shied away from. A lot of legendary creatures. Horsemanship has only appeared a handful of times since Portal 3 Kingdoms. Lu Xun, Scholar General, and Lu Quan, Lord of Wu, were reprinted in various Commander products. Herald of Hoofbeats, a new card printed in March of the Machine Commander set. The Girl in the Fireplace, a new card printed in the Doctor Who Commander set. And Merry Go Round, a new card printed in Unfinity. What are your thoughts on just doing a dash of horsemanship?
I think you gotta like how rare of a dash, because I think that once in a decade could be a great spot if you got a really, really great flavor where whoever the named character is so iconic and known for horses and horsemanship. That's cool. But I think you got to really want it.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of very, very similar in my mind to Shadow, which is like when you do a lot of it, that's like a thing going on in a set or a block, but it just becomes unblockable when you do it once.
See, I'm way more sympathetic to very small amounts of Shadow. Because Shadow's got a different play to it, and it can be okay that like it's not that Shadow even like plays that great when you got a lot of it either.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Shadow has such an evocative flavor. I think on a lot of these things that are, if you're going to just do a pinch of it, you got to really want the flavor of whatever there might be, whether it's Shadow or horsemanship. I still can't get over there should have been more done with the Lord of the Rings with Shadow, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Such a great opportunity.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that offline. Maybe one day we'll be.
I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
It haunts me, so to speak.
Borrowing 100,000 arrows.
Oh, this card's name.
So cool. Holds the record for the largest number in a card name.
They're not like some infinity, some
I don't know. This one would hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah,
honestly.
Let's call it that though. 100,000.
Zodiac Dragon is one of just 5 dragons that have flying or the ability to gain flying. The others are the first one that I have here from our normally extremely reliable note taker is Misform Ultimus, which I am vetoing. We have Henge Guardian, Elder Landworm, and Shikafukushin Dragon. That one I'm not familiar with. Obviously, pronunciation is not great. Elder Landworm, however, that one I do remember. It is also one of very few cards to receive power level errata, clarifying that it must be put in your graveyard from the play/battlefield to go back to its owner's hand. This is ambiguous in a lot of the Portal templates because
it's actually not ambiguous. It's literally the opposite of what they did. It was just a problem. It was actually a power level problem that I think they wouldn't have even changed if not for, they wouldn't have changed to this degree if not for the card availability problems. Because like this is already even, this is a $600 card or whatever. Portal 3 Kingdoms is really hard to come by in non-Asian markets, non-Pacific markets anyway. And the trick here is that you could use it to fuel an unlimited amount of stuff like looting or something, or anything that would cause you to mill or discard would just give you you could just do this an unlimited amount. And that kind of a power level, that kind of a warping effect accidentally was very concerning when the print run was so small, and it was so they actually fixed that card because it was sort of like, well, we never intended for this to be a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's squee times a million, right? Because it's unbounded. It's not gated by your upkeep. It's happening multiple times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that it's happening from mill or discard as whenever you want over and over and over again, it was definitely very, very, like, as an example, Wild Mongrel, Zodiac Dragon, instant kill.
Right.
So it was like really lame. And so many of the Portal Kingdom cards needed clarification anyway, because they're written in ways that are just not standard Magic template, including Zodiac Dragon, that it was really easy to sweep it under the rug later.
Zodiac Rooster is the second of only 4 creatures to be printed with Planeswalk. I believe I know 3.
Yeah.
Righteous Avenger.
Of course. The classic.
Zodiac Rooster.
Yeah.
Graceful Antelope.
Of course.
I don't know if I have the 4th.
And you're saying there's really only 4?
That's what it says here. I trust our correct researchers.
It's got to be natively Planeswalk, not just gains Planeswalk.
Yeah. Because there's also the enchantment in Legends that gives Planeswalk to everything.
Well, there's also take away creatures with Planeswalk.
Yes.
Because, and that's to say nothing of Ice and Highway. But I'm going to go with 2/2 Planeswalk for 3.
Okay. That just has a card that exists out there somewhere. All right, we'll go back. It's probably up on the screen right now. I'm pretty confident in 3. The 4th one, I don't have. I played enough Odyssey Limited to have a long experience with and against Graceful Antelope.
And I've played enough Legends, Righteous Avengers.
All right, got some misprints. Riding the Dill horse was printed without the until end of turn clause and should be treated as though it had.
No.
The set was given errata prior to being made tournament legal. The card was instead given reminder text stating that the effect is permanent.
Exactly. It is permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until end of turn. Or you're saying that the misprint they just rolled with.
Right.
I got you.
And then some stuff involving the collector's numbers being a little out of whack here. Portal 3 Kingdoms includes 14 reprints. A lot of these are kind of core to the Portal experience up until that time, including cards like Blaze, Coercion, Stone Rain, Stalking Tiger. These are cards that we've seen in more than one Portal product. Portal, unsurprisingly, has 63 functional reprints. I'm not going to go through the entire list here. Again, it's a lot of just kind of nuts and bolts stuff that you want in Portal. Worth noting here that 63 functional reprints out of a set of 155 cards is about 40%. So at this point, it seems like they're pretty comfortable with, we have the template that we want for how Portal is supposed to look. We're going to change the rares this time around to have more legendary creatures, and that's where the spice will come in. But the commons and uncommons, we really don't need to reinvent the wheel. We know what plays well in Portal and what doesn't.
2/1 Planeswalk for 3, man. Bogart Arsonist. That's a deep cut. 2 in
Is
a
that
red.
Lorwyn?
Yeah, like Shadowmoor. So
Shadowmoor.
2 in a red, 2/1 Planeswalk, and you can pay 2 in a red and sacrifice this guy to destroy target Scarecrow or Plains.
Ooh.
That's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut. That's
Yeah.
nice too, because it's like offense or defense.
And then, of course, the symmetry of the Homelands card, Ice and Highway giving everybody Planeswalk, and Great Wall stopping Planeswalk.
Mm-hmm.
Lord Magnus in case you need even more ability to stop Planeswalk and Force Walk at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the GOAT, Old Fogey, who has snow-covered Planeswalk among his many abilities.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
This is some deep cuts.
Oh, yeah.
This is a game with a lot of cards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a ton of functional reprints. Again, lower areas, they're pretty happy, I think, at this point with what the Portal experience looks like than the Legends are supposed to. I'm not saying
in theory
correctly or not. I'm saying that is the lay of the land here. All right, notable cards. In white, Loyal Retainers.
I've played that guy a fair bit.
You, I'm sure, have way more stories with these cards than I do.
Loyal Retainers is a really cool way to reanimate Legends. Yeah.
Peach Garden Oath. More famous, I would assume, for its association with high-level tournament Magic than it is as a Magic the Gathering card as such.
It's not that strong.
No, it's
but
not.
But the actual Peach Garden Oath players, quite strong.
Quite strong. Ravages of War.
Quite strong.
This is there's a couple cards in the set where, set comes out in 1999, hard to find, whatever. 2004 rolls around, and suddenly all this stuff is legal in Legacy and Vintage. And there are strategic advantages to, say, playing one Armageddon and one Ravages of War in your sideboard to avoid things like Cranial or Cabal Therapy, Meddling Mage, whatever, Surgical Extraction, whatever. And so you have this moment where these cards are like kind of cool oddball collector's items into becoming necessities for playing tournament Magic if you're trying to optimize. And the cost of these cards just all went like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's not, there's already the cards that are like the functional reprint ones. There's also the stuff like Imperial Seal that is like unique.
Mm-hmm.
Once these cards became legal, there's a real scarcity thing,
Yeah. Moving to blue, we have the Capture of Xingzhou. That is...
Take an extra turn.
That's Time Warp. And Strategic Planning. Another oddball from the set that for a little while was quite expensive.
And the Capture was an interesting one because you can't get that one misdirected the way that Time Warp can be. Because Time Warp is target player takes an extra turn. So there was actually a functional advantage to the Portal 3 Kingdoms one.
I did not know that.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Black, we have the aforementioned Imperial Seal. Another, again, that card's been reprinted. I don't know what the secondary value was like at the time, but shows how little of the set existed. That card is quite a bit worse than Vampiric Tutor. However, it's unique, as you mentioned, and there aren't that many of them out there. And so the card was quite valuable for a long period of time.
Yeah, and it was still restricted in Vintage, even though it's worse than Vampiric Tutor, because you just want to play a second Vampiric Tutor. Nowadays, there's been so many new cards that it's just, it doesn't see very much Vintage play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it was quite a powerful thing to be able to, like, having another way to go get Yawgmoth's Will was a thing for a while. And there are also other cards that exist, but the combination, there was a golden age when you could play with 4 Brainstorms when Vintage was Vintage, and Imperial Seal obviously works well with that.
I also think Imperial Seal is kind of a dope design. Me
too.
They try to capture the Tudor magic a little bit in Portal sets. It's tough to do just because the rate, how do you do it in a way that doesn't make the game super repetitive? And, it's tutoring is definitely a thing that players appreciate, but how do you do it the right way? This, to me, the combination of the tone is awesome. It feels like a very black card meets its sorcery speed. Now that's a function of its Portal and, it's all sorceries.
I think it's beautiful as a sorcery here.
I think this card plays so much better as a sorcery than an instant that it's a really great Portal card that happens to scale nicely once it's actually legal in older stuff.
I'm going to make a decision. I know something you don't know, but I have to lock it in.
Yeah.
And then you get to play different and you don't know what I got, but you might think you do, or you might be right, but I might have tricked you. You might think that I got the thing, so you play very aggressively, and it turns out now I can punish you for it. And there's a lot of gamesmanship.
And the last little bit about it is, what's nice about Imperial Seal relative to something like Personal Tutor, let's say, that was also in Portal products, is I think new players really don't want to show what they got. Like that part of the joy of playing with a mystical tutor or vampiric tutor style effect is I know something you don't know, the thing that you just brought up. And because Imperial Seal can get anything, you don't need to reveal. And so I'm the one who knows something and it's not shared information.
I think it also just takes a lot of burden off the other person. Because I think that with personal tutor, you show your opponent, and it's not like it's a card in your deck, not their deck. They got to read it. And now they just know this is coming. This is going to slow down their turn where they have to be like thinking about what you have. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Imperial Seal, if they don't think about it, well, they didn't know anyway. So it's much easier for them to not just waste a bunch of time and energy thinking about this card.
Exactly. And also the card that you play the next turn, whatever you tutored for.
Yeah.
From my perspective, that could have already been in your hand. Right. I don't even know if that was the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you don't have to just feel stupid for doing something that just straight up because it's really rough for a new player when they do something that's obviously horrible when the other person plays whatever they personal tutored for. Mm-hmm. And there's no getting around it because like they just play the card they have, and you might not have understood the implications because you're new to the game, but now you just feel like an idiot.
Yeah. Red, big one here, Imperial Recruiter. Mm-hmm. That's just such a sweet design.
Dude, I know. And it was much maligned. I got a lot of flack for advocating Imperial Recruiter. There's a period of time where I was talking about how great Imperial Recruiter was, and people were like, no, dude. No, it's terrible. It's terrible. And it's like, no, I'm telling you, man.
So the context that I've seen the card show up in a tournament setting, really, there's two. I'm curious if you have a different one. One is Allurid.
That's the one that I was most... Like, that's when I thought it was, like, extremely good.
Yeah, and it is extremely good. It could not be made for an Allurin deck better than that card is.
It's so much better than just trying to Allurin with 3 cards. The idea of Allurin plus Imperial Recruiter automatically wins. It was so wild how many people didn't get it.
And the other context where I've seen Imperial Recruiter is primarily in Legacy, alongside just Magus of the Moon, City of Trader, Ancient Tome. Commander. Yeah, just big red decks where that's just a tutor
big
piece.
Little. It's funny. It's like expensive red cards, but a lot of them actually weirdly just have 2 power anyway.
Yeah, Grindstone Painter Servant is another example of that. I don't know about it really in any other competitive context than those two, but that's quite a bit, and they're two very different directions. Well, it's kind of 3, because
I do think that Imperial Recruiter as a card for your Painter Servant Grindstone deck is very different than, even though sometimes these 2 red decks merge, but there's a different red deck that's a little more value oriented. That's, and sometimes they overlap where you're like, I'm going to play Magus of the Moon and Painter Servant and Grindstone and Imperial Recruiter and, Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I think Imperial Recruiter is a sweet one. I also just think that's a dope design.
It is.
And, the white one's okay too. The functional, the symmetry one that's like an Imperial Recruiter for toughness. Mm-hmm. The red one's a little more sweet, but they are both sweet.
Yeah, I do like a lot of, take a card like Goblin Matron, for example. So much of that is about, well, you can just go get any goblin, and some of the goblins are naturally going to cost 6 or 7 mana, and that's where some of it's coming from. This is pretty clearly telling you, like, if you're getting something big with this, it's got to be awfully specific. And so often you're sort of paying a premium to tutor for something that's a little bit more mid-rangey, but because you either value the tutoring that much or there's synergies with the fact that Recruiter is itself a creature, there's enough to get it over the line. But certainly not like an auto include by any means in various red decks and older formats. Rolling Earthquake, we already talked about. That's Horsemanship Earthquake.
I will say, by the way, one other thing that I've Imperial Recruited for is Goblin Recruiter. Which is a funny thing to tutor for. Goblin Recruiter has been banned in a lot of formats, but the amount of times that you can just win if you Goblin Recruiter, and it's weird because you're like, well, Imperial Recruiter's not a goblin. Don't you want all goblins? And well, once you get the Goblin Recruiter, it doesn't matter that there's Imperial Recruiters in your deck. You just have you are just going to win.
Yeah, have you considered that the 37th card down in your deck will not be a goblin? It's like I think I'll be fine. Like we'll figure something out before that. Green, we have Riding the Dill Horse. God, the names in this set are so good.
That card is. We're gonna come back to that one. That card is dope.
And 3 visits. Another. This is a really juicy set for a Portal expansion. I gotta say, the names and what the cards actually do for Portal is. There's a reason beyond. I think a reason beyond the fact that some of these cards are randomly worth a lot of money, that there's an attachment that people have to this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that does it. We'll be back for an all new award segment coming up next. It's awards time. And you know what? There are some new sheriffs in town. Let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, the awards no longer named after an individual card. They're just the award as it is. Second, new rule that Chapin and I agreed upon. No duplicate cards. You cannot give the same card the two awards. Now, if I happen to give one an award and Chapin gives one an award, that's fine. No double dipping. That era is done.
I also, if you've given this card the award in the past set, you don't get to give it again.
And then third, Chapin and I independently made our lists without consulting one another before we got to this segment. So I'm curious to see if we have any overlap and if we have the same answer for a question here. I think that pretty much sews it up. All right.
I bet we got overlap on at least one.
Yeah, I think so too. We're kind of talking like, let's imagine standard, your average standard
block, right?
Standard or block. I think the card here that would be the strongest in that setting is Ravages of War.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the strongest cards in the power in like it's a legacy staple,
right?
You know,
vintage cube, like whatever.
Right,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Second award, strongest card in a high power setting. Your answer is.
So this one's tough because of the stacking rules. You know, like you can't pick the same thing multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to sound weird because I'm going to not say my first choice, but I have to because of what will come later.
Yep.
I'm going to say Imperial Seal edging out Loyal Retainer.
Okay. I also gave it to Imperial Seal. I think this is actually an interesting set where, all right, so you have Ravages of War on one end and you have Imperial Seal on the other. There is kind of like
this that axis
of like, this is obviously super, super, super strong in low power settings. And this one's super, super strong in high power settings. And there's this weird bell curve where, or like XY axis thing, where I do think there's a particular power level you can get to in a format where Imperial Recruiter is actually like better than both, but it's a very narrow one.
I disagree. I actually think Imperial Recruiter is clear number one. I just really needed it as an answer for a different one.
Okay. Fair enough.
But we'll give it to Imperial Seal because it's the only card that's been restricted in Vintage, and it's obviously such a...
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. New award. Coolest commander card. Not best. I don't care about that. I'm not giving any more awards to Brainstorm. I don't want my co-host doing the same. Coolest meaning in the spirit of multiplayer and something kind of novel and fun. Your answer.
What's your answer first on this one?
My answer, Empty City Ruse.
Yeah?
Yes. It's single white sorcery. Target player can't attack during their next turn. I really like it as a sort of tactical, like you have the ability to sort of like bully or like don't pick on me because I have this thing that could be super problematic for you the following turn. I know in high level, power level commander games, no one attacks anyway, but I'm trying to speak to what I think the ideal is.
I'm going to go with Loyal Retainer.
Okay, sure.
I think that Loyal Retainer plays really well in Commander. I think that being able to put together multiple legends, I think that having the time to put your stuff together, I think the fact that Loyal Retainer has Secret Haste lets you do some really cool stuff, but it also has the ability to sit on the table, and it gets recursed in ways that are conducive to how some Commander games can go, and it can look more innocuous than it really is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly the Commander card I've played with the most. Not lately. I mean, the world's a different world now than it was in the 90s and 2000s, but...
All right, new award. Your favorite art in the set. Doesn't have to be limited to a land. Oh, yeah. Favorite art.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, I got to make sure to say your name right. The Dioshan, the Artful Beauty.
Okay.
If you see this card,
it's up on the screen right now.
Yeah. Beautiful card. Beautiful. And it's got in the name, artful beauty.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing.
All right. My answer goes to Forest Bear. I know, obviously, Tales of Adventure, that's our shop. That's the sponsor of the show. I know that you're, as someone from Michigan, very connected with RIW hobbies. And there was a show a few years ago where I was walking by the RIW booth and they had a Forest Bear for $1. And I was like, yeah, obviously. And the RIW vendor goes, it wasn't Pam, someone else working there, goes, oh, you want to raise the roof bear? Yeah, we got those because it's got his paws up in the air. Forest Bear from me.
Yeah, mine, it's kind of the two different flavors though, right? Like, do you like the funny, ironic art, or do you like that's just beautiful?
I like a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. New award. Biggest design success. This is not speaking to an individual card, but a mechanic or macro characteristic of the set that you thought was very successful.
Games are way more fun than Portal. The games don't get bogged down, and there's a sense of pace and plan and tempo and some decisions. So I think that under the constraints of we're going to have one person make up a set and it's burdened with the amount of Portal stuff, I think it's very masterful with regards to evolving, not perfecting, but evolving that craft, you know?
My answer is I'm a big fan of just the sheer volume of Legends, giving the set a certain identity. And also, I think Legends with names and maybe you recognize from the canon or whatever, so much easier to go, that's my favorite card. That's the thing that I want to build around. When you're new to the game and like ostensibly that's the audience for Portal, I think there's a certain amount of, well, I don't really understand the game and what's appealing or attractive to me. I don't know the cards and the mechanics well enough to even make that kind of decision. But you see a character with a piece of art that you like, with a name that's cool, whatever, you can just latch onto that and the rest will figure itself out at some future date. All right, next award. Biggest design failing. Again, same answer here, not an individual card, but a theme or tone of the set.
What's yours first?
The pre-combat tapping homies, the things that are like before combat, you can tap me to do X, Y, and Z. They are trying to alleviate some level of onboard complexity, I guess, but they're also very complicated in practice and very wordy.
Yeah, and it's not like they play well.
No, they suck.
I mean, like some of them can play okay, but some of them, it's super awkward. Like there's this emergent gameplay that doesn't exist because they got that. You're not even protecting anybody from anything. I think that for me, the greatest failing is the fear of cool stuff happening. There's a lack of anything big, and there's a lack of ability to make anything big, and the gameplay is almost it's not even like the sorcery speed isn't even the issue, and I get that they got around that a little bit with certain tactical things. To me, that's not even the problem. It's really that there's these creatures that just trade with each other, and there's a million evasion creatures, and beyond that it's almost entirely just peppered with sweepers and library manipulation.
Yeah,
that's it.
So you're speaking to the I know that this is like just a card type that's not in the set at all, but you're speaking to something like auras.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think auras would have been so good, or equipment, or +1/+1 counters, which is part of the reason why I actually think that the riding the Dalu horse, we'll get to that in a second, but I think that riding the Dalu horse is an accidental masterpiece in the set. +2/+2 and horsemanship permanently is such an unbelievable buff, particularly in a world where it's the only buff. And then green getting horsemanship, and green getting a way to give something, and green getting a way to make something big, it just plays so phenomenal. It's just a shame that there isn't like a lot of that.
And it's interesting too,
not a lot, but
a place where our biggest failings dovetail is the pre-combat tapping homies are trying to replicate the aura experience to some extent, but they're so not aspirational. They're clunky. They don't tell a very good story. And so even though our answers are very, very different, like just directly, they do speak to the same problem. Yes, they're speaking to the same problem. All right. Next award. This one's really fun, I think.
I do think, though, part of the experience is there should also be some natively just some bigger cards.
Yeah.
And I get the fear of wanting to not have the games be bogged down because of the failings of previous Portal sets, but they went so far. The amount that you get by having a legend who's a 5/5, you don't even have to have like a bunch. I'm not talking about putting Crawlworm in the deck or whatever, but I'm saying like if you got a legendary dude anyway, it's kind of sweet if they got a little bit of oomph to them.
Right. Okay. Card you've won the most with. You personally, Patrick Chapin, what card in Portal 3 Kingdoms have you won the most with?
Imperial Recruiter. No question. That's why I had to save this one. Imperial Recruiter is an unbelievably strong card, and I crushed with a learn.
Okay, my answer. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's weird though. If we're gonna actually talk about stakes, it's Imperial Recruiter. But if we're talking about like, I have played a lot of games with with Imperial Seal and strategic plannings, but there was no glory. Imperial Recruiter is where the glory is at.
All right, my answer: someone with much less experience with P3K and specifically Imperial Recruiter than Chapin over here. Fire Ambush. So Fire Ambush. Eventually, as someone who sort of became a legacy player around the time that this became legal, it's like, all right, I got some homework to do, right? All these cards people are hyped about. I don't know what they do or what's legal. Here we go. So I come across Fire Ambush. Fire Ambush is just Volcanic Hammer. I think it's very funny to have a sorcery be called Blah Ambush. And so I would be messing around in like local legacy whatevers, and I would always have one Fire Ambush in the board. So you could just bring in against someone who, like, maybe you feel like you got a little wiggle room against this particular opponent at your LGS, and knocking someone out with a Fire Ambush is just like, there's nothing like doing that in a legacy tournament.
I respect that.
Can't say it's happened a ton, but of all the cards in here, it's the one I've won the most with. All right. I think this one's probably even more fun. The card that you've lost to the most.
What's yours?
Imperial Recruiter.
I can believe that.
Yeah. I said, what other answer would there be?
Mine's Stone Rain.
That's fair.
Yeah. That one's a distant first for me.
Really? That actually makes sense. Because this is like also happened with Eugene Harvey at our LGSs of like, eventually the 50th percentile player in like 1996 who, wasn't particularly good, but kind of had a sense of things, identified consciously or not, the only way I'm beating Eugene is that he can't cast his cards. And once the 50th percentile player latches on to that reality, because it's true, that is actually their best route, then your best players start getting Stone Rain a bunch.
I've also just drafted from the beginning, and Stone Rain has been a common in so many sets, and it's been playable enough times. How many times do you really lose to any Portal 3 Kingdoms card, right?
Right.
But Stone Rain, I've lost to Stone Rain a lot in my life.
Okay.
This is one of those like, LeBron having the most misses numbers.
Right. Okay. Award Most Wasted Potential. The design that you think if you change something or it's occupying some space flavor wise that could have been applied somewhere else. Your answer?
Virtuous Charge.
Ooh, okay.
2 and a white sorcery, your creatures get +1/+1. And until end of turn.
Yep.
And to me, the amount that is wasted from this card, where it's like, they have these sorceries that can be played tactically, and this ain't one. And this card would be so sweet in context if you could play it in combat. It would be so sweet because of how much the way the cards all line up exactly. You could just get so many, and it's not like it's whatever. It's 3-man. At instant speed, it's terrible at 3, but it would be awesome in context. And they have the technology for it in the set. And then you could even have other stuff. If you're going to do this temporary stuff, it's nice to have a little, like a little something else that's juicing it, like lifelink or something, but like in this context, I just think it's such a wasted thing, the chance to have a little bit of combat trick.
My answer is Way Assassins.
Mm.
I for a set that's clearly cares a lot about presenting a world in a particular way and like the names mattering. You know, the dichotomy I talked about all the vanillas have names of troops and contrast that with all the legends.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the assassins are an edict is like brutal.
Well, and there's a few. I mean, it's weird how many different edicts they have in this set. But they have an edict spell, this edict assassin, multiple guys that edict when you play them in some form or another. It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean the story here that it's almost like the opposite of assassination. It's like collusion, right?
Yeah. And I think you can do one of those stories and still sell it as an assassin,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a weird vibe for a lot of assassins.
Right.
That said, there are also a lot of other assassins that do other assassinating, and I think there's just too much of that stuff. Like, there's a creature that just kills a non-black creature every turn,
Mm-hmm.
and the amount though that the Way Assassin, and then there's a red one also for 4 that is 2/2.
The tapper.
No, I'm talking about just when it comes into play, just like this one edicts them when it comes into play. I think it's really lame that the way the games play out, the uncommon Necrotals are so dominant.
Mm-hmm.
But so I agree with you on that one being wasted. It's not even a named character. It's so strong relative to how not as cool as a bunch of the other stuff.
Yeah.
I also think that this is a set that in particular you really want to be able to have people interact with the problematic card that's assassinating something every turn, or that's bouncing something, or that's, you know, like the cards that make you discard a card every turn or draw a card every turn.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Edict doesn't do that, Edict just contributes to the grindy nature of everything trades. Not my favorite part.
No. But let's close it out on a high note.
Oh yeah.
Your favorite card in the set.
So given that I can't just keep saying Imperial Recruiter, I really think it's the riding the horse Dilute, riding the Dilute horse. The card plays unbelievable in context, and it's not just that. It's like there is something also awesome about accidental beauty when you accidentally create a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Because this card is simultaneously like my real answer for greatest failing is that there isn't more of this explored, but it's also the best. It plays so good in concert, and it's thematic. It's like an iconic one-off ability that is a thing that people ask for, and it's like people say, "Oh, you can't do that in Magic." It's like, "Oh, really? That actually exists already."
Yeah. I'm gonna give it. Maybe this is a bit of a softball. I'm gonna give it a Zodiac Dragon.
That's cool. No, that's a totally reasonable answer.
Great
design.
First of all, it's like a really cool like design for new players. It's awe-inspiring, and I really love it in context because it's an 8/8 where all the other creatures are 2/2s. Even the legends are not that big. So it's like, this is the dragon. It's noticeably bigger. I think something that, there's something about present day Magic, I think is, to me, I sometimes I sort of furrow my brow at is just how much massive stats are at common and uncommon relative to the rares. And the rares are largely about rate. This thing is like, there's no doubt about it. This is a rare. This is so much bigger, twice as big as anything.
Mm-hmm.
Second, talk about commitment to the craft. We're going to make a dragon without flying. Yeah, that's the world that we're building. Okay, well, we have this mechanic in the set that's basically flying called Horsemanship. What if we stuck it on here as sort of a no, because it doesn't ride a horse. How big is this thing? Do you see it? So the fact that it's sort of like connecting the Zodiac thing, it's sort of the cherry on top of the 12 cards that's telling a poem. The fact that I think it's an awesome portal design anyway, and the commitment to the world that they are building, when I think a lot of less skilled or less experienced game designers probably would have looked for a cheap way out.
Oh yeah, or just stuck horsemanship on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So lame,
so bad. And I really,
if you're in this world, own it.
And this card,
you don't have to, but man, is it the coward way not to. And the fact that they actually owned it,
it's hard to do. Really hard to do. But Zodiac Dragon to me is it's a belief in the thing that they're building. It's awesome. That does it for the awards. We'll be right back to wrap things up. All right, Chapin, time to close it down. What's your grade for this set? I'm borrowing, by the way. I think I'm going with letter grades going forward.
So if we're going to grade on the context of the constraints of the era,
I prefer to.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to give that 100%. It's not meant to hand wave everything, but
yeah.
I do think it's important to grade on a curve.
Then, I'll give it a C plus.
Okay. Walk me through it.
Like, I'm really conflicted because it's not like it plays that great, but it plays so much better than Portal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not very replayable as a standalone experience, but it doesn't need to be. Like, why are you a high level player trying to play a bunch of Portal 3 Kingdoms a whole bunch? It's got a tone, a feel. It doesn't bring that much to the table. It's almost entirely reprints in spirit. It's got a ton of cards that, like, it's got this horrible thing where most interesting things, like so many abilities are costed. It's like, oh, does this do anything? Better make it bad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real trap you can fall into, where you think that anything with a keyword's got to be terrible, but things that are necrotals can all be good. 2-for-1s can all. So I'm conflicted, but I think under the constraints, it greatly overperformed. It's got a tone, a feel. It's very weird to be judging a set that's so hobbled by constraints.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, not even counting the being designed by one, because I think that as far as a set designed by one person goes, it should actually get like a B plus. But I think that there is, like, just in terms of a set experience, given the constraints, it's still got a lot of problems that make it not as good of a product, even for the sensibilities of the day and age.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's my it's a little bit better than we would expect given the constraints, but it's not great, which is why I said C plus.
It's funny you should mention B plus, because I give it a B plus. The thing that makes me really fond of this set is there are a lot of constraints, as you mentioned, and there's a larger question of, like, we are trying to simplify the Magic experience for a new player. Are we making the right bets, the right trade-offs, right? We're not doing auras. We don't do instants. I'm not sure if those are the correct bets to be making, but let's assume that that's kind of like where we're at. That's the sensibility of the time. If you look at the other Portal sets that came before this and try, in my opinion, try to teach a new player the game, you would have to convince them that the game was fun. The pieces themselves would not suggest to the person that they would be interested in this. You'd have to persuade them that it's a fun game. I think the really big step forward for Portal 3 Kingdoms is the look and read of the cards. I don't think I would have to convince someone necessarily that Magic was a fun game for them to be interested in opening packs of Portal 3 Kingdoms and seeing what's there. Some of that's the art, some of that's the saturation of Legends, some of it's the actual commitment to the world building that we talked about before. But I think all that stuff matters, because at the end of the day, what you're judging the set on, or any Portal set, is basically, does someone get through the door after they experience this? They buy some packs of their LGS. Are they interested in buying more or learning more? And I think this set is such a huge step forward through that lens that I give it a high grade, even though I think all the critiques that you have and the point about constraints are well set.
Yeah, I still think you got to be careful how sharp of a curve you grade these on, just because I think that if you say, like, we're going to judge it based on other Portal sets, it's sort of like, but if none of them are wise, why is that a good standard? Like, Portal was a very flawed concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the least bad of the Portal sets.
But I believe the step forwards are, like, massive.
Oh yeah, and I give it a C plus, even though I think the phenomena is bad, but I think the execution is so good here relative to the.
I give a lot of credit to 31 Legends. I think that's it's such a huge percentage of the set and a huge percentage of the rares that had to be someone's vision. And we aren't talking about, I mean, the set got made in 99, right? So we don't even have Commander as a backdrop informing this, right? We're used to a lot of Legends in sets nowadays because Commander is the primary way that Magic gets played. And so that informs a lot of design sensibilities. To make a bet that big on Legends without something like Commander anchoring it underneath, that is a really bold decision to make, especially for a set like Portal, which I wasn't there. I wasn't the one person working on this. I think that from a design standpoint, my guess is if you kind of phoned it in, no one would really know or care. A lot of this is about building the world, and so much of the set is reprints anyway. So there's like the Portal template that's being leaned into. I give a lot of credit to saying, no, we're going to have a ton of Legends, and that's going to be the hook here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that if you just buy in at all the constraints, I think B+ is a very reasonable. I just think that there's a certain amount of, you're making a thing. If you are making a thing unwisely, you got to at least partially have that. But I am very sympathetic to the B+ because I think that this is, under the constraints, much better than you could than expectation.
I got a lot of praise to like, oh, it looked like someone tried.
Oh yeah.
For a Portal set, I think it'd be very easy for a designer to not really try. And Henry Stern here, I think, gave a hell of an effort.
And there's stuff that I really like with like, I actually think that there's some subtle stuff that's elegant that to me is like with Portal, there's this mistake of thinking, why don't we design sets as if everybody has brain damage? And that's not actually, somebody being a novice isn't the same thing as them having severe brain damage.
Right.
And elegant design doesn't mean bad. Mm-hmm. It's much the opposite. So I think that this set has some stuff that's beautiful without needing a lot of words. Like, for instance, I think that in context, Ambition's Cost is an awesome design here. 3 and a black, draw 3 and lose 3 life. I think drawing 3 cards is very powerful in a world with so much trading, and I think losing 3 life is a very steep cost in a world with so much evasion. And it's very thematic, it's flavorful, and it takes the game in a direction that has a visceral feel to it. And, you know, there's little stuff that's helping add, you know, texture, like their own version of Deal 5, you know, Lava Axe upstairs, that contribute to a feel without needing a lot of words and without sitting on the table causing pressure. So I love all that. I think that that's very, very well done in this set, particularly under the constraints.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to our scoreboard, which is going to be a little bit of a mess for a minute because in 6th edition, we both gave numerical grades. In Mercadian Masks, you gave a letter grade, I gave a numerical grade, and now we both gave letter grades. So hopefully we'll get this cleaned up over time. I prefer the letter grade.
Yeah, we'll just go back and retroactively.
Yeah. We have 6th edition, we both gave 8s. Mercadian Mask, I gave a 3. You gave a D. D and 3 are pretty comparable, I would say, in the same range. And Portal 3 Kingdoms, B+ from me and a C+ from Patrick. That'll do it for Portal 3 Kingdoms. This was one of the sets where looking at the visual spoiler was so much fun because there's a lot of cards that like you just don't see very often. Even if you play, let's say, Vintage Draft on Magic Online, or you have a sizable collection, or it's rare to encounter these cards. And I remember the joy of like walking past the RIW booth, seeing a forest bear, having the RIW employee be so happy to sell a forest bear to me. And it's like, there's just so much of that going on here.
I just can't tell you the amount of rage. I'm not a person prone to anger. But being forced to play white border cards where there's no alternative, you just have to play with a white border card. Lame.
It's painful. I've started to appreciate it a little bit with formats that have a lot of fetch lands having white bordered lands. But I agree with you. Generally speaking, white bordered is a pain point. But for me, somehow here it just works. I don't know if I'm just used to it or whatever, but it's a beautiful set and adventurous for a Portal as far as it goes. That brings us to our sponsorship callouts. First of all, if you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you. Please subscribe. If you subscribe to the channel, you can find all of our archives of sets going all the way back to Alpha. Our most recent set prior to this were Mercadian Masks. Got a lot of back there, so you can check it out. We also have some of our episodes of Tournament Edition. Pro Tour Atlanta 96 is up right now. You can find some snippets of the Unsleeved podcast and watch our Crack a Pack videos. That takes us to the Patreon. Get over to patreon.com/resleevables and sign up today. There's a variety of tiers that are available. Access to the Unsleeved podcast, autographed basic lands from myself and Chapin over here. When you get to the $10 and $25 tiers, though, you start getting drawn into our random Crack-a-Packs. And we sprung on this one. You want to take one of these? We could have done simplified Chinese, whatever. No one would have known the better. But we sprung on the English packs. So if you're interested in being drawn for one of these, what happens is we do a Crack-a-Pack video. We open up one of these boosters and kind of go through the cards and talk and laugh about them. And one of the other booster is sent to one of our patrons at the $10 or $25 tier. So if you're interested in being drawn for this or several of our other boosters coming down the pipeline, patreon.com/resleevables, and you can sign up at any tier, but the $10 or $25 tiers if you want to be drawn for the packs. Tales of Adventure, Where Does Eternal Live? Here, meaning there, out in Pennsylvania. Make sure to be using promo code Resleevables at checkout for 5% off of all your orders. And if you're on Twitter, make sure to be following TOA Michael. Their website, toamagic.com. Bosch and Roll, watch the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're already here. Head over to Bosch and Roll. Brian Koval streaming Eternal every single day. What's next for us? Resleevables. We got Nemesis coming down the pipeline. It's a set that I'm extremely fond of that I think that if I went back and, play with now, maybe it wouldn't hold up. I don't know. But for a bad spike, it might be the greatest bad spike set of all time.
You think so?
I
do think it's a nice set relative to what it gets sometimes maligned because of its, brother prophecy or sister prophecy. But it's fun.
Yeah, I believe that I have played in a constructed sanctioned tournament with over half of the cards in Nemesis.
Damn.
Yeah,
that's not
just every single itch that 19-year-old me who was okay, but nowhere near as good as they thought they were. Nemesis scratched every single itch. I'm so excited to take a look at it.
Dude, Jolting Merfolk.
Oh my God. Blinding Angel.
There's a lot to like.
So we'll be back soon with Nemesis. And until next time, thank you for watching.
Yo. What up? Check, baby. 1, 2, 3.
Choi, Portal 3 Kingdoms. Take 1. We changed some shit around. Hopefully, it's fine. You want to give me a clap for an audio sync? It's an interpretation of a clap.